let's go ahead and kick it off. My name is Christy Thompson, and I am marketing over here at BIS. And we just wanted to say thank you so much for coming out and joining us on this webinar today, kicking off January in 2026, right? We're going to be talking about how to run a smarter, more efficient office in 2026. And it's incorporating AI compliance and Microsoft 365. So you're going to get a real good practical roadmap for your business. Let me go ahead and introduce you to our host. If you've been on these webinars, you know it's Phillip Long. And if you haven't, let me introduce you. He has been here in the IT industry for over 25 years. He's the CEO of Business Information Solutions, and he holds multiple certifications. So he has his CISSP and his CMMC certification designation. So lots of acronyms there. But he recently got, well, I guess it's not recent anymore, but last year got his ethical hacking expert certification. So he can think like a hacker to protect against hackers. And then he has 600 plus Gulf Coast clients. He goes all the way from Gulfport to Dothan, all the way up to Montgomery and even parts of Tennessee. So I am going to pass this over to Phillip.
All right, thank you, Christy, so much, and thank you everyone for joining. I think that again, I think things are set up for seasons, for times to there's a season for everything, and January is a season to get it together, and let's make a big hit on 2026. And I want to talk to you just a moment about our company. We did a pretty significant change last year in our overall approach. And I'm really pleased with what we've done. And you're going to see a lot of this accelerate IT. And it works off of, we've changed our mission statement. We want to accelerate business growth through strategic leadership. And we do that by identifying needs, getting to know our clients better, implementing the solutions that fit those needs, and then supporting that technology for sustainable success. It's really based off the concept that technology should bring about positive change. It should be a force multiplier. And when I listen to clients, and I've done this really 25 years now, and when I hear a client, they're like, "Oh God, they just hate their technology." That's a problem, because that means that your accelerator is broken. And that's what we do. We want to focus on how to fix that. Let's keep moving. There's a lot of offices that struggle, and I see it often. And it's because of the complexity of the environment today, in my opinion. There is a lot more tools to run a business, and yet there's less clarity. It's like the tools don't talk well together. And you've got artificial intelligence, big buzzword. It's absolutely everywhere, but it's not really defined yet. If I go to one of these conferences, basically the guy's standing up there, and it's gotten a little better, I'll say, over the last quarter. But basically the guy's standing up there and saying, "Yeah, this AI thing, it's big. You want to be on board with it." Well, what the hell does it do, right? How does it impact me in a positive way? And I've seen a lot of rising compliance pressure. I call it the data supply chain, where we have, you're providing something for your clients. Well, it takes a vendor that you have to interface with, who's hosting your server, or who's managing your network, or you're capturing this information. And up and down that supply chain, everyone's getting cyber liability insurance. And of course, that transfer of risk that the insurance companies take, and they have more and more and more questions about the information that you're capturing, who has access to it, and so forth. And so I see a lot more of compliance pressure. And I'll pause on that word compliance. It's often like a hated word. And the thing about compliance, if you thought compliance and you thought predictable outcome, they're really the same thing. And we want predictable outcomes. And compliance is actually a way to get there. But I'm going to talk a little bit more about why it's so dreaded. And then I want to talk a lot about Microsoft 365, because it is so underused in today's modern office. I was speaking with a client yesterday that's in the law at a law firm, and they are not using. I mean, they're getting their email off of that, and I was just working through, and everybody works at their own pace. I get that, and I'm not like a pushy guy. I see a lot of opportunities, and then everybody has to come up to speed. But at least for them, they're not purchasing the product and not using it. That's kind of what went through my head. Well, at least they're not buying the product and not using the services in it. And then really the reactionary component of tech people, of what I do. We call ourselves managed service providers, whatever, and we're supposed to be proactive. And when I really look behind the scenes, I see a lot of reaction, and I see a lot of clients, and they say, "Oh, I got a guy, and I love him. A fire breaks out, and he comes running." Well, when you look at it closely, a lot of times that fire should have never broke out. But that's a difficult conversation to have. So it's really not about the technology, it's about the alignment of technology. And that's what we're going to talk about today. You know, let's define what smarter and more efficient means. It's not about buying more software necessarily, and it's not about working harder. It's really about, if we had this equation of efficiency or even effectiveness, I often use that word because I think it sits just above efficiency. Because you could be efficient at something that's not effective, right? I could be very efficient at destroying my life or whatever, but it's really not effective for the outcome that I want. So we have this efficiency, and it's really clarity, and then it's consistency, and then really controlling the outcomes that come from that. So first, you got to know where you're going. Then you got to get up every morning and travel in that direction. And then you have to have the discipline or the control in order to stay in that lane and not veer off of there. So what we want to look at in a smarter office is trying to define low value tasks and automate them. And there's a lot of people. I've read a lot of books, and it's a difficult task. And the most I ever made it was about a week, and kind of writing down what I did all day, every day for a solid week. And you'll find that there's a lot of things that you could definitely hand off to somebody. And in today's world, you might could hand off it to an AI piece of software. And nobody likes the monthly subscriptions. I certainly don't like monthly subscriptions, although the world has gone to that for sure. And you don't want to just, again, add a bunch of monthly subscriptions. You want to figure out how much are you really going to use it, and then are you going to commit to using it. So I like the Franklin Covey. He says think of the end and the beginning. So we want to think about the outcome we want, and then we want to kind of back up and figure out where's the highest impact right here. But what it really does is it reduces risk, because a lot of things happen in our psyche and in our mind where if we're just strung out and we don't have time to focus, the likelihood of us making a mistake is much, much, much greater. And if you can do these, if you can automate these tasks, you're going to have a lot pickup in speed. And then it's going to also build security and compliance into the daily work. If you set it up right, the security and the compliance are going to be built right in. And most of the time, not on every tool or every situation, but believe it or not, a lot of companies have the tools that are already there, and they're actually just simply not using them. They're basically free if they would just spend a little time to get them employed. All right, so we're looking at three major driving forces that shaping offices in 2026. And we're getting pulled in these directions, whether we like it or not. The AI adoption. I don't know if your software has not tried to call you and sell you on some component of artificial intelligence. Most have. And then, of course, those compliance expectations. If you're, filling out those forms for your cybersecurity insurance or for other vendors and passing around that. And then also cloud collaboration. And, you know, we don't want to treat these as three separate things. They can be handled in one area in one fell swoop if you're, purchasing the right software and if you're deploying it and implementing it in the proper fashion. Okay, so we're going to move on with, we'll talk more about, where the businesses I see that are getting it wrong. One is shadow AI usage. And that's simply, they call the term shadow IT. That is where your people, and this is usually they're doing it in the desire to be more effective. I'll give you one very classic example. We saw it big in COVID, but it happens all the time where, like they need to have files at home and in order to do work. And, they're going to be on vacation or whatever. And, pretty much the world has gotten very flexible on, especially in the executive and the owner world. It's like, you're expected to work 24/7, 365. I'll be driving tomorrow, or actually my wife will be driving. I will have my laptop in my lap and I'll have my phone hotspotted and I literally will work. And we have a system worked out where if it's during the week and we travel, then pretty much she drives and she's cool with that. So, but that's just the expectation that we have today. So we have these people trying to help. And but what happens is in AI is they're uploading your you know secure documents, the documents that have personal identifiable information or trade secrets or things that quite honestly they don't need to get out in the world. And they're using just the regular free chat GTP or Grok or Gemini or whatever. And they're actually putting your company at risk. There's a lot of things, if you want to send a fax, right? Nobody's got a fax machine anymore. There's a lot of free services out there where you can send a fax. Well, if something's free, you're the product. Just write that down. If it's free, somehow, some way, they're monetizing you. And companies not having data controls, they don't know what's going on within the environment. They have no idea if Susie has just uploaded all their client records. They don't know. And with fast internets and large hard drives, it wouldn't take that long to pull something like that off in most businesses. And there's no employee like guideline. There's no standards being communicated as to how this should or should not happen. I'll give you another example. We partnered with a company who does um, the like LastPass. It's called Password Boss, but it's where you can actually store your passwords securely, like in the web browser on your phone. Password manager is what I'm trying to say. And for the longest time, I've had this conflict because I'm talking to people, and I'm like, the average person has 65 different accounts, and every one of them are now requiring a 12 character multi, with uppercase, lowercase, special characters. Well, it's impossible for a person to remember 65 different passwords. And usually it's your email as your username. So what they do is write it down, which is doubtful. In today's environment, they use the same one over and over and over. Even if they were writing it down and keeping it, do you really want to have to keep that Excel spreadsheet or that document with you at all times? So people just use the same one over and over. Then once you have that one site get breached out in the world, then they're going to go out and try that on every other site that's out there, and one of which is Microsoft 365. And nobody's doing any type of security review. And so what the result is high risk and really no higher productivity. And that's the exact opposite of what you're doing. So let's talk about how we can use AI to eliminate busy work. And we want to do this in a safe manner. Well, first off, AI should remove friction, not create risk. So we want to use it in the right way. We want to use a paid for product. I'm a fan of Copilot just because primarily several reasons. At one point, I would have told you that Microsoft is terrible at security. And I'll tell you, today they're good. They're really good at security. It's also in that ecosystem that we'll talk about more later, where that ecosystem has expanded so nicely. And, they won the world. They beat out Corel. They beat out all these other companies because they bundled it. And they did it a couple of ways. They would find something, I don't know, I'm old, and used to be when you really wanted to connect securely, use Citrix, right? And it's still around, much different than it used to be, but it was the remote connectivity software. Well, Microsoft got to the level of where they couldn't buy them, but they got to the level where they were almost as good. And then boom, they throw it in their operating system for free. You just got to buy a couple extra licenses. So boom, now everybody moves that. Citrix has to go find their other way. And they've done that. Either they bought the company or they've created the product and they've just, taken themselves into where they have a very big, strong offering. But one way that you can use AI is like email summarization and drafting of an email. And if you're running Copilot, it's right there. It sits right in your Outlook. You click the button, you give it some high points. I've even gotten so lazy where I can hit my control button twice, my microphone pops up, and I can speak, and it writes down my words. And I say, hit summarize it, clean it up, boom, send the email. You can also do a lot of other things. You can schedule emails. You can do a whole bunch of things with that. Next is like meeting notes and action items. When use Teams, this particular webinar is on Teams, and it will give me a recap of it, and it'll give me a transcription of everything that was said, and I can search it. I can do whatever. It also will give us a like an outline of everything that was said in a really nice format. And if there were action items that were discussed or to-dos, it'll give you the list of to-dos. So if you're not using Teams and doing that, you need to do that like now. And I have another little device here. It's a Plaud, Plaud, and they have several different type models, but I literally can hit this button, record a meeting. I no longer have to take notes, and it'll record everything. It'll transcribe it, and then it has varying templates of where AI will go and uh, break it down like, okay, this was a board meeting. This was a whatever kind of meeting. This was a client-facing meeting. This was a sync up with one of my employees, and it has a whole bunch of templates. And because it kind of asks different questions and it shapes the data in a different formats. Awesome. You get like 300 bucks, 300 minutes a month. It's 150 bucks. You get 300 minutes a month's worth of transcribing and, for free. And then there's a fee if you go above that. I think unlimited, it's like 20 bucks a month. So very, very powerful. And I'll give you a real use case. Um, I'm in a peer group with some really sharp guys. And, I told you early on about how we did a lot of changes in the company, and they tasked me with presenting, in really a pretty detailed format as to what I did and the outcomes and all this. Well, I literally was, I got my truck, I hit this button, and I spoke about everything that we did, just like I might tell you right now. Okay, we started here, we did this, we did that, boom, 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 boom. And 24 minutes worth of conversation to myself, basically, while driving. I ran it through the AI filter, and I guarantee it was 98% accurate. It even, like when I spoke, I said, well, we did this at that time. Like I missed the sequence of time. and I wanted it in a sequential form. But I just said when I was talking, but actually, no, that should go up here. That should go underneath the hiring process. Boom, put it there for me. So really powerful. Teams, if you're not using that, you need to hit, record and transcribe during the meeting. Really powerful when you couple it with Copilot. And then also document search and summaries is I get it, more and more out of it every day because of I wind up needing something, and the old days of trying to search your inbox is that search engine's terrible and it's not very effective. But you can actually use Copilot and you can say, hey, I don't know whether this is in a Teams chat or whether this was in an email, but about a month ago, I was talking to so and so. We exchanged communication, and it had to do with this. Boom! You hit the button, it goes out, it lays it all out. It puts links to where the conversation took place. So if you want to see the things around it. So document search, summaries. You can also do it inside of, say, your OneDrive. You can search something, or another thing that I had a trust created recently, and it's like 180 pages or something crazy. And for me to sit down and read 180 pages like that would be almost impossible. But I loaded it up as its own content, and I basically used, Copilot to ask questions about that document. You can use that in all areas of your company. You can set up, a Teams channel for your HR department, and then they can just use AI to ask questions from that. And, that kind of lends itself to that internal knowledge assistance. And if you want better answers, you have to ask better questions. But what is so unique about AI, in my opinion, is that we have the ability to ask it how to ask a better question. So, you think about the old search engine in Google, you type in and it renders you whatever you typed in. Well, with AI, it will, of course, uh, give you that or whatever, but it'll also have other prompts to make you ask a more defining question so that you're able to get a more concise answer. Really revolutionary in a lot of ways. And so that's a very good way to do that. And AI tools work best, inside the tools that you already trust, but the free ones are not your friend. You really are going to put some risk in things if you're using it for sensitive data. I've already talked a lot about Microsoft 365, and most people have access to this on a limited basis for the free version. And so I don't forget, you can ask me about this later, but Microsoft, it's like $30 for a month for Copilot, but they have a special SKU, a special bundle where if you bundle it with the Office Suite, it's way cheaper. It's like I don't want to quote myself because I'll be wrong, but it's much, much, much cheaper, probably at least 30-40% cheaper if you bundle it. Again, that's Microsoft's magic, right? They bundle it. But it, like I said earlier, Copilot rides in your Microsoft 365 suite. You can have smarter email and calendar management. You literally could just say, hey, tell me how good am I doing at arranging my calendar? Are there efficiencies that could be picked up? There's I don't know if it's third party, if Microsoft owns, it's called Decisions. And I have a decision summary that pops up in my box every day to kind of outline me on the day and help me make better decisions. And of course, faster document creation and review, better collaboration in teams. I would love to just show you all the ways that we're using Teams. And I'll mention one because it's really easy to do. I'll mention two. One is with our phone system. Our phone system has the ability to export the communication, the calls, out into a transcription. And I just email those files into Teams. The but it has, the person, the data, the whoever was on the phone, both sides, and when the call happened, how long it happened, it has all those kind of details, but it has that transcription. And literally, I have a subset of questions that I ask about the calls that my team is making, and AI will go in and ask those questions, and it sends me an email briefing. So I'm just sitting there looking at the questions that I had posed of it. Like I'm concerned about like wait times. I'm concerned about uh, one thing about large language models, which is, ChatGPT, that's a large language model. They're very good at sentiment. They understand human communication by the way that, they've evolved and been trained. So you can see how well your people, how warm they are. One of them is, I like a warm transfer on a call. And, instead of just like, they want to talk to somebody, okay, cool, hang up and boom. And I don't know if they were at their desk or if they answered or whatever. You hit transfer and you say, hey, Joe, I got Sue on the call here and she wants to talk about XYZ. You good? Okay, great. Sue, I'm going to go ahead and transfer you to Joe. Thank you for calling. That's a big thing to me. And I can tell if my team is actually following through with those protocols. And I had another one. I'm not going to mess with it because of time. And very much on data insights. Because of the way that this technology works, you can, it has the ability to look at incredible amounts of information. And one of the things, the changes that we made was the way that we hire. And we really focused a lot on the responsibilities of the employee. And that's how you develop the ad. And I have a whole process. I'd love to share it with you guys. I guess I'm proud of it, but it's been very effective, and it works, and it's not that time consuming. But you load up the responsibilities, and all the people. Once I get to a subset of people that I can't decide who I want to hire. I have them take an assessment, kind of like a Myers-Briggs, but there's a lot more out there today. And then I upload the responsibilities, and I upload the candidates, and I basically have a subset of questions that I ask as to who would best fulfill the um, the requirements of those responsibilities, and it gives me pros and cons. And then I'll ask it on, like, there's another interview that's going to come after this. Give me questions, clarifying questions on anything that this particular candidate might have weakness in. And if these reports are 80 something pages, and I don't hire until I have at least three candidates, and I can't decide which one to hire. So I'd have to read 240 pages, memorize all that, know that, and I mean, this is just incredible what you can do. Um, and again, a lot of people are paying for this technology, and they are simply not using it. Another component that we talked about, kind of moving on to the compliance, and why does it feel so stressful? And, because those letters that Christy talked about that I have, it's a form of risk management, is what a lot of my CISSP, that's a certified security professional, and then I have another one that relates to the Department of Defense, the CMMC. But really, when you look at what they want with those compliance things, is they want to know that you're going to keep the data safe and that you're going to be in business with the ability to provide the widget or the service or whatever you do. They're just trying to ensure, on one hand, that you can deliver the services and the time frame and all that. They got a good, solid company that's doing good practices. And then on the other side, they don't want to have risk. They don't want to have data leak. But why is it such a big deal? Those annual audits, last minute scrambling. Nobody ever says, yeah, my compliance requirement documents are due in June. And they're not saying, yeah, I got them done in January. They wait till the last minute. And a lot of manual documentation is a problem. And of course, all that compliance language it's a different language. And once you understand security and once you understand that language, it's pretty easy. But for the average person that touches it, intermittently, you forget the language, and by the time you got to touch it again. AI is so powerful at doing that. And a lot of times people are very concerned, they call it hallucination, where the bot or the AI chat will just spit out something that it sounds relevant, but it's not true. Well, that is because it's pulling data from somewhere and it's using that as a legitimate source. But you can control that very easily with Copilot. You can upload the actual documents of compliance, like for the CMMC. I upload the actual government documents on all the regulations. And then when I go to make a manual, or I go to make a process, or I go to make a checklist, I ask the questions very specifically, and it only pulls from those documents. Now, of course, everything's got to be read through, but I'm telling you, don't make mistakes when you give it good information. And then there's such an inconsistency with the application and the way that you do that. And it burns you out. There's a lot of errors and there's business disruption. And quite frankly, there's a lot of risk that you've introduced into your organization because, you know, there's a conversation I usually have where I talk about compliance and security. I'm going to pick security every time. Because if I had to pick between the two, they overlap and they work together. But most of the time, the auditor ain't coming knocking on the door unless you have some type of breach or some type of security incident. And then they come in and then all hell breaks loose because all those documents that you did, first off, probably didn't do them. Second off, you did them and you did them wrong. And then, we're seeing now where insurance companies are, you fill out that form wrong and you said you had X, Y, and Z in place and you don't, they are going to try to limit the claim or deny the claim. It'd be almost as if you could fool your automobile insurance and saying, you got a bunch of reckless driving and a bunch of DUIs, and you said, oh no, I don't have any of that, and then boom, you get in a wreck and you're drunk, and then they pull out the file and they go, aha, and then you know there's big problems. And that's ultimately what's going on in that compliance world. So what you have to do is figure out how to make compliance part of the daily work. And it's a longer conversation. I'd love to have it with you guys if you want to have it. But Microsoft 365 is um, so in tune with this already. The way that you handle that data, the workflows and the way that things can go here, they can't go there. If they go here, you got to encrypt them or they automatically get encrypted. It's a form of what we would call data loss prevention. But the platform and the environment is built to make this all happen in the background. You set it up and then you get to enjoy it, right? And it's also doing the logging and reporting so that you know where your documents actually are, who has access to them, and setting up the access controls, and it's in line to the role of the individual. They call that least privilege. You don't want somebody to have administrative rights when they don't even need them. And if something does have administrative rights, you want to enforce password rotation and multi-factor authentication, all free, all built within the platform. But you would be surprised who people, they just won't do that, or they think it's so hard. And those security baselines, being able to set up rules to where other countries can't even get into your platform. It's just by default. And if you were taking a trip to Europe, cool. I go in there and I make an exclusion. I'm going to be in Europe for 14 days. I know the days, I mark it and I close it. The same day that I open it, I set a task, a schedule, and it closes on that day. So a lot of things are really there. And at the end of the day, fewer surprises and less disruptions, because that's really, I think, what we all want, right? We want to have, time to not be stressed. this is a statistic that blows me away. Most organizations use 30 to 40% of Microsoft 365's platform, and they're using Teams only as chat only. They're not doing their meetings in them. They're not recording them. They're not transcribing them. They're not having like files and specific teams for certain things where it's all set. And the beautiful thing about Teams is that you, the end user, get to handle a large level of the permissions very easily. Who needs to be on this team? Do they need to be an owner or do they need to be a member? And real simple things. And when that person's no longer there, you remove them from the team or if they're no longer relevant. When you add someone to the team, do they need to see the history of all the chats and the files? It asks you that question from prior, or do they just need to start from today moving forward? So, really easy to manage and extremely powerful. And, SharePoint is ignored or misused. And if you understand the Microsoft platform, you have like OneDrive, right? A lot of people know what Dropbox is. That's your sync and share, and it syncs to your phone, your tablet, your PC at the office, your laptop at home. So I have access to all these files everywhere, right? Great. Well, then you have Teams, like I was saying earlier. You have all of that type of communication. Well, it all really lives inside of, it lives in the Azure platform, but it's accessible through SharePoint and very powerful platform that you can use to do all types of customizations. You can do a company information page. You can do, we have our knowledge base there. We have our, other things there. I'm trying to think for a second. Ice makers dropping ice again, but there's all types of information and it's easily accessible, security controlled in an environment to where you can have access to that. What I was going to say is that like Teams, that Teams channel that you have right here is really folders that'll show up in SharePoint. So it's different ways, and you can force a link in your like shared drive so that if you want to save something in your SharePoint, it's just like your C drive, or it's just like a folder, like on a map drive on a network. There's so many things you can do to make that seamless where it's not hard, and you're not having to do all this manual stuff. I have a client that I'm onboarding right now, and literally scan a document, uh, uh, they scan a document and email it to the other person in the office so that they can file it. It's just like, and they got the full suite. They could do it so easily. They don't know how. So there's a lot of things you can do with that to be, more effective. Here's just some practical things that Copilot right out of the box with very little training, very little understanding. You can monitor inboxes, our team channels, and you can flag things. You can do things when you can tell it basically, when you see this, I want you to, send me a note. I want you to pop an alert. I want you to do things, and it will absolutely automatically do that for you. One other thing that, I mentioned it earlier, that every Teams channel has a that folder has an email address. So you can actually email things into that. If there's a particular report that is coming out of something, you have your assistant or your bookkeeper, whatever, creating a report, and then they're emailing it to you. They're texting, whatever they're doing to get it to you. They literally, you can automate that report and it automatically goes into a folder that you just click on. And it's just so much more efficient. And it's also so much more secure because we're not doing these 50 different ways to communicate. I'll say one other thing, what I like about Teams is like, I don't want my people texting me. And I really don't even want them emailing me in most cases. I want them to Teams me because now I have one channel where I can have absolutely all my communication. I don't have to remember. As a lot of you know me, and I own a wedding venue. And for a minute there, I was doing, as it was coming up, I was doing a lot of the communication. And there's nothing worse than being Facebook messaged, Instagram messaged, email, texted. Oh my God. It's like, where the hell do I talk to these people? Because you got to go back and remember where you started the conversation, and then you got to switch channels all the time. With Teams, you can centralize that. It's huge. I talked about those recurring reports, even utilization. You can have Microsoft give you utilization. One of the things that I was concerned about when we moved our knowledge base to SharePoint is I wanted to make sure we're actually using that that information. So it emails me a report as to how much usage is coming from that. A million other things you could do with that. You want to, answer internal question using approved documents. Like I'll use a use case for HR. We have a channel for human resources, and how long is your handbook or whatever you call it? Like the company handbook. I was actually looking at ours, I think 2 days ago. It's 100 and something pages. It's got the fair medical leave. It's got so much stuff in there. And I just don't think that a lot of employees are going to read it. But if you put it there and they want to find out, when is payday? What are we off this day? They can literally use AI to look at the documents that you have. It's your documents. And then they can look at those documents and ask questions and get answers from it. So that's a really another cool way that you can do that. And that assistance with onboarding and HR or IT requests, you can build forms out and you can have it to where they go out and fill a form out, like for purchasing. It used to be such a nightmare because you want to have somewhat of a handle on what's getting purchased. I got 25 employees in the IT company, and you know, um, depending, who thinks what, I was spending $3,000-4,000 a month on things that I didn't have any oversight on. So now we have a process where they go submit the form and it flows, and I'd say, okay, it's real easy. And, you can't spend my money without my permission. And then of course, supporting sales, finance, and operation workflows. You can put all those workflows right there and really remove a lot of friction from your people's day, because culture a lot is defined the level. I know for me, um, frustration is such a killer for me. I can have the greatest mindset and be so like, I really see clear and I can do, but if you put me in an environment where there's a lot of friction and I feel like there's a lot of turmoil type stuff, then I get irritated and my production goes down, my relationships, I can destroy a team of people's good feelings about me very quickly if I get frustrated. So I have to be very careful about those things, because as a leader, you really don't want your people to see you frustrated. They want you to see things, like, okay, that's not a good thing. But yet, you're executing on it. You're doing something about it. So we got to offload this dumb stuff. Um, just quickly, I'm just going to go over some utilization opportunities that you guys have. If you've got Office and you've the suite and you've got Copilot, Outlook is going to summarize your long emails. It'll draft responses with using your tone and context, and it'll get better over time. And then you can also make it flag and do things for you. Mine, I have it set to where if I didn't respond to somebody, it actually read it and it knows it needs a response. And if I didn't, it gives me a list of things that I need to respond to. Teams talked a lot about that. You can recap those meetings. If you missed or you joined late, you can go in and do that. I don't want to go long, but I want to say that this one thing that I think is just awesome for for business people who are like my team. They got a cycle where we're doing 90-day sync ups. Everybody's got a team lead or whatever, and they're doing 90-day sync ups. It's on a central calendar. Important to have it on a central calendar. And then there's channels underneath for each of the like manager and employee. Well, they do their sync up, and literally they're doing it in Teams. It's transcribing, it's doing all the AI stuff to it. And I literally can take an AI bot and I can look at that entire folder. If I want to get a sentiment of the entire organization, I can look at a particular manager and an employee, and I can ask questions. Or if there was a coaching, like, and in our organization, like there's a coaching where there's an issue and we're trying to resolve it. And I've trained my people, like when you coach, you want something very concise, and you never want to say that she told me, he told me. It's always about you. This is my sentiment or my concern. And like they write it up and they discuss it. And then the employee responds and they discuss, and the response gets discussed. With AI, you can nail that. And like if the guy is deflecting or not accepting responsibility, because it's so good with language, it is just awesome. And I can keep an eye on my team without ever, I can kind of grade my manager in a very easy way. I can look at my employee to see if they accept responsibility, and are trying to do suggestions uh, to solve problems. I talked about the phone system earlier. You can do that with a phone system too. Um, and then, of course, PowerPoint. We use some other third-party things outside of that. I do. I think, in my opinion, Copilot is not the greatest at graphics. There's some other tools out there for making presentations. I use a product called Gamma. This product right that you're seeing right here, this was done by AI in Gamma. And if you really want to make it look nice, you're probably going to have to do a couple minutes afterwards. But this was built in 2 minutes and probably 10 minutes worth of changes. Christy did this one, but this is my template. So all my presentations look very much like this because this is the BIS template. It's a product called Gamma, Gamma, really cool. It's cheap, like 20 bucks a month or something. But you have it in Word, you have it in PowerPoint. It can create things off of, you could actually say, I need to do a training on XYZ and Copilot, and it gives you, and I want 10 slides and I want, 3 bullet points per slide. And you want to go in deep about, I'm speaking to an audience consisting of this, and this is my role. And, the better questions and the better outline, the more concise, the better you're going to get. And then, of course, Excel, man, there is nothing more awesome than all those complex formulas that you want, and you just had no clue on how to pull them off. You can just use a Copilot in Excel, and because like programming has fewer characters, AI is way advanced on programming. If you got kids, tell them don't go into the world of programming. They got to be able to, because the actual writing the program is uh, is very easy using AI. And but if you could teach them how to be an entrepreneur, to be able to be curious and find things that need an app. The programming itself is very easy. And one of the things that as a revelation to me that has come out in the recent probably 6 months is the value of information has gone almost to zero. So now, you can get the information now and be more than likely more accurate than one human being because of we learned it wrong, we forgot it, or whatever, especially when you're using that known knowledge base. Um, so now we have to look at understanding what questions to ask, what the needs are of things, clients, people, world, whatever. And then the execution is um, is paramount, right? If we want to have that predictable outcome that we're looking for, then we have to set processes and measurements and things like that in order to get the outcome that we're actually looking for. Um, most organizations are using Copilot for drafting letters, and they're really missing the biggest values. Speed, clarity, consistency across daily work. There's a lot of things coming out right now. Voice AI is really like getting there. And the thing about an AI voice bot is that if there's a particular question that needs to get asked, it won't forget. We're developing one inside of our organization because it takes the human, if somebody calls in to put a ticket in, we've timed it, it takes about 12 minutes because they ask a question and then they have to type. And then they ask another question, they have to type. Where AI can just remember all that and dump it into the system. And one of the big things for us is this recurring? Because it takes a complete path, different path throughout the organization for a higher probability of resolution. It's going to go to tier two, and it's going to be more focused on the subject matter expert. But anyway, it's important to know that, and it's important to know, um, the priority. Is this low priority? Well, okay, cool. We'll get to it in 4 hours. Is this critical? We're going to get to it in 15 minutes. And you would be surprised that people forget to ask those questions and document them, where AI will absolutely never, ever, ever call in sick and never forget to ask that question. So we want more value. We don't want to buy more tools. So smarter users beats more software. There's an exercise that I do with people a lot of times about the as you increase a team, um, the complexity of it just exponentially blows up. Where you like just communication channel. If you got two people, one channel right here. Okay, you get three. Okay, now we got three channels. But when you get to 25, you've got like 115 channels of communication. So it is better for us on many levels to have a very concise, informed team than just adding a new user. So you know, but this is how we can use this better is we want to look at how do we standardize that teams. That's the first thing I would do if I owned an organization is I would get Teams as the standard means of communication because you can also text on it. And the cool thing about that, everything's in one place. You can record it, and we back everything up to the cloud, so we have all of that stuff in perpetuity. And it's also you don't have to decide which channel it happened in, and you can benefit from a lot of the AI stuff. Teams is probably going to lowest hanging fruit, most bang for the buck, whatever you want to say. And then you want to look at that improvement on your document governance. Get the whoever you're working with as far as who's requiring those standards, get their standards, create yourself a knowledge pool, and get your documents in place. Not going to be hard with this tool. And of course, you got to live them out. But I mean, again, because you can ask the questions and it makes it 1,000 times easier. And then you want to leverage those built-in security controls, like some of we call them conditional access policies, where you can't share a file outside of Word or outside off the cloud without forcing the other person to have multi-factor authentication. Or even if you just said, hey, I'm going to share it, but default, it only shares for 14 days. That way, whatever that information is, it expires at some time. Whereas if you just email it and I get a hold of your email box, sometimes, you may have 10 years worth of stuff in there. Very valuable for the bad guys. And then just automate some simple workflows. And, that efficiency or that effectiveness is going to really come from optimization and not so much expansion. So problem in the real world, everything is disconnected. You got your AI over here, you got your compliance here, you got your security there, and IT, they're all managed in these different silos where if we can get it all in one bucket, we're going to be a lot better off than where we are. And again, there's probably a 30, 40, 50% that you're not utilizing that you could if you put your brain on it just for just a second. So um, chaos, is what we're totally against. So there's really a better way to run IT. And it's where strategy replaces that chaos. Some work on the front end. Again, Franklin Covey, think of the end in the beginning. What do we really want? What are we trying to accomplish? Well, let's back into that in a way that can be self-sustaining, alignment with your business goals. It's going to reduce your risk. It's actually going to improve your speed and have more predictable outcomes so that you're actually doing proactive stuff and not always stuck in that reactive mindset. This is what we do. And this is just a plug for really what we're doing as a company is we're focusing on how to bring technology solutions to the forefront of a business so that we can grow business. I would like to grow my business by my existing client base growing 20%. That's a win-win. And you talk about making a good relationship. If you're using technology to accelerate their business and they recognize it and it's working, that's a great way to grow. You ain't got to go out and, harvest a whole bunch of new clients. You've got them. You're going to make them better. You're going to, reap the benefits and they're going to reap the benefits. And it's really good for companies and entities that have regulations in them. And you do it in the Microsoft 365 environment because it's already made, it's already ready, and you just need to have somebody, plug into it and make it work. And there's really 5 pillars of this Accelerate IT: artificial intelligence, compliance, 365 optimization, cybersecurity, and then just that overall operational, um, IT, proactive IT, managing your assets, doing your technical business reviews, keeping your network patched and passwords changed, and just the what we call general cybersecurity hygiene. And really, this is all delivered in our environment in a 1000% transparent environment. You want to look and see how your patching looks. You want to look at your backup. You trust your IT guy too much. Trust me, because I got a lot of people that trust me too much. And this is 100% transparent where they can look at any moment and look at everything within their environment as it relates to security. One of the things it's terrible about Microsoft is that they have too many portals. I think they have like 15 or 17 portals and they don't really talk together. We just went through this in our company and bought a bunch of training and a bunch of things so we could do this for others. And I thought we were pretty secure and it was horrible. We were getting hacked all the time, not successful, getting attempted, people hitting our account like hundreds of times. And we've got that so quieted down. And I can even see and get an alert when it's actually happening. So a lot of great things can come out of that. The traditional network that we had is much different than the cloud. And then you got this other little pool over here of mobile devices, cell phones, and things like that. And most IT companies, and most of them, honestly, are not doing a great job on the overall. They're not going to show you, just call them, show me my patch report. Huh? They, oh God, I need a week so I can actually go in there and get you patched. They're, they know that a little bit, or at least they can use the language. Nothing on your 365 and very little on your mobile devices. And the world is changing. And if you'll join me in, I forget when, it's in the next month or two, I'm going to show you how Microsoft 365 is coming out with something, how they're going to use AI and security. And it's really, I think, going to be a game changer overall. So, all right. So for you guys that were on this call, I'd love to have the opportunity just to talk a little deeper. I'm not a twist your arm kind of guy, but I think these are things, if you're a company and you are looking to expand your operations and you're wanting to become more efficient, less manual, less, um, you know, uh, uh, the ability for errors to happen, reduction in risk. Let me do this. Let me do a business review. I need to understand what you're doing. And then I'd like to do a Microsoft 365 vulnerabilities review for you because I think you're going to be shocked. And then let's talk about some actionable recommendations. No cost and no obligation. I'll hand it to your IT guy. So if that's something you're interested in, all I need you to do is go send it to security@askbis.com. And Christy, we have any questions or anything?
Yes. So we did have a couple of questions come in. How long does it realistically take to see productivity gains after rolling out AI?
Repeat the question. Does it take to have what portion of AI completed? What was it?
To realistically see productivity
Oh,
gains.
if you haven't done it at all, 5 minutes. Um, yeah, I mean, you're going to see results that fast. And again, if you want better answers, you ask better questions. And I could put somebody on that thing and I could say in 30 minutes. And if they're again, if they're that mindset of growth mindset, which only 40% of people are actually growth mindset. And the good thing about the other 60 is that through proper leadership, about 30% of those could be changed. But if they're curious, if they want something, in 30 minutes, I could show them an enormous amount of things because I'm not only going to show them how to get started, I'm going to show them how to use AI to ask the next question and take them down that road. I mean, so that they actually, use the tool not only to get the answer, but also to continue to ask better questions.
Yes, yes. We had another one come in, and it's what's the risk of employees using their own AI platforms?
1000%. They're doing it right now. I could put a little thing on your and I will only do it anonymously unless you like let your people know, but I can put a little tool on one of your computers or your server or whatever in your office, or I could bring my own box in there and I can show you everywhere people are going on the internet. And it never ceases to amaze me the people that are like, oh my God, they're never doing nothing. I, this has been years ago, but the guy's face, how red it turned when I showed him the report. And again, I did it anonymously so he couldn't see who was doing what. But I mean, there was people watching Netflix. There was, you know, lots of pornography, uh, and just so many things that don't belong in the business. I'll put it to you that way. And if you don't have your filters in place, again, that's another underutilized thing. Most people have firewalls and they have the ability to do filtering, and most companies would, like say that certain things don't belong there, and literally it's a checkbox to solve that. And, it's just one of those things, that maybe never got done. And a lot of times those types of sites actually come with a lot of bad stuff in them. You know what I mean? So you're not only killing time and maybe, somebody saw that on somebody else's computer, it could cause some litigation type things. I've been on a case like that in the past, excuse me. And then also the I forgot. There's more reasons than what I just said, but other people seeing it, loss of production. Oh, also, yeah, there's a lot of bad links and stuff that get put in there from a security purpose because those sites are a lot less regulated, a lot less fluid, a lot more fluid too, in the things that get changed on. Very hard to they can put something on that and it would eventually get caught, but they do a lot of changing on those sites and it takes the filters a minute to catch up, not to block them because they know what the site is, but I'm talking about the links and things inside the site. All right. Anything else?
Last one. How do you get employees to trust and actually use AI?
I would do it very openly for sure. And this is a little exercise I did with an attorney, And again, I don't really, I want to help businesses, and I want to expose them to things that might help them if they choose not to, but they have a very repetitive task that they do, and I had the files that they had, and there was a very specific task. I asked the questions to understand the task so I could build the prompting, and I proved it to them. Sometimes, the proof's in the pudding. And the beautiful thing about that is I have saved all those prompts. Like when you build out something and you get it like you want it, and you got to ask a few questions, and you get it dialed in, you say, save this prompt and name it, blah, blah, blah. So now all they have to do is put that particular use case of files into upload them or share them. Like if they're in a file, they can just go over and just link to that file that's on SharePoint and boom, hit that damn button and the results spit out. So I think you have to, I think it's a lot of ways, I think depending upon your employee, I think it's important to understand some people, you got to show them. Some people, you have to challenge them. Some people, you have to do whatever, but I think it's in your best interest to at least explore it because I'm of the firm belief that there's certain industries that are going to be deeply, like I said, don't go to college to be a programmer. That industry, don't go to be a um, in an attorney's office, the person who types everything up. I don't think of the word, but don't do that. Don't, but again, they'll always need that person that can think, you know, so that position will be there, but it will be a lot more work can be done by one person at that point. I mean, I went to one coding class. I hate coding. And I write scripts all the time. And, you know, because I'm really not, I know what I want and I just ask the questions and it writes the script. So, I think it's a mind shift change from the value of the information and the ability to get the information dropped. Who can ask great questions and really know what they want increased because they're going to get it and they're going to get it a lot faster now. So if you're that guy, you're going to beat out the guy who don't want it or is not going to explore. So I think the need to at least be curious and explore and is essential. But most entrepreneurs, we lasted 25 years so far. I was with a guy yesterday, lasted 40. Very few companies last that long. And I think we'll see an acceleration of that for people who aren't willing to you know explore new opportunities or things like that. And again, I'm not trying to be like, I believe that, I'm not trying to like be, oh, here's a car fixing to run you over. I just believe that that's really where we are in the world today. And it's somewhat of an exciting time.
Hey, Phil, we had another question come in from Chris. I have only used Teams when invited to a conference call. How does Teams work as a company-wide communication platform to use by everyone every day?
Sure. It's multi-dimensional. You start off, you can use it just by chatting almost. And just like I would have you in my Teams app instead of my Verizon app or whatever phone you use. I got all my contacts. I hit the button. I texted you basically. Then you can actually add multiple people to that. And then you can add files to that, which is really cool because like you look at the team and then there's a little thing there for, they just changed the word of it. It used to be files, now it's something else, but all the files that we've ever corresponded on are right there. And Christy knows. I mean, I'm like, put it in my Teams. Don't email me.
Yes.
Don't text me because hell, I don't like having to think of where something is. I mean, it takes precious brain cycles, right? And and then there's a whole nother level where you can have a Teams channel And that's where it's a static team of people, and you can do meetings in there. You can share files. You can create different, different channels, they call it, to be very specific. You can turn on alerting. You can use it that way. And then the way I was talking about earlier, I'm using it as a file repository basically for my VoIP phone calls. It's just a quick, easy way to get an emailed report into a folder that I can use AI on. So it's extremely flexible, and I don't think it's really it's most people can run it that you can text. And if you can text, I can get you started on Teams in 5 minutes. And we can, then say, okay, well, let me show you this, or let me show you that. And so the ROI on it is quick. And again, we're talking, let's go on to security and compliance because now I've got all my stuff right there. Is there sexual harassment going on in my company? Shit, I got the Teams chat because we don't use texting, right? That's outside the policy. And so, all my communications within my team are did I say that? Did she say that? I don't know. I can AI it up and go, yep, it was mentioned or on the meeting. Yep, we did mention it. It's cool because it'll like you can do the recording and it'll show you who spoke. And you can go in and like you type in a word and wherever it was said, it goes right to the meeting where that word was said. And you can just scroll through it to every time that word was said, and it just kind of jumps along that video. And that could be taken out and dropped into another tool that could do training, and it just opens up the opportunities to be highly productive. A lot of people don't make training because it's hard, but I could show you how to use Teams and create a training channel and use Teams to record what you're training. Now, there's some other tools I think do a little bit better, and they're cheap too. But I mean, you can do it in there, and it's pretty effective. You got the video, you got the transcript, and breaks it down by who said what. Just a lot of things that you can do with that.
Okay, that's all the questions we had come in,
Okay.
Phillip.
Yeah, and I appreciate you guys coming. I really do. I hope that I challenge you or I do whatever it does to make you explore that and become, bigger and better and get home with your kids more. That's my thing. I got grandkids and, how do I operate a highly effective at a highly effective rate? Well, technology is an accelerator. So a lot of you are using and buying products and we're not getting our money back. And you don't know what you don't know. So maybe you might know something after this. And I appreciate it. And I'm always available and open. Like I said, you can, drop a text or a chat or whatever and send it to security or get with Shayna or me. And we'll set up a time you can take advantage of this little cybersecurity scan and review that I will do for you. But thank you guys. I kept you way over and I apologize, but I got crazy and all, into it. So I appreciate y'all. And if I can help you, let me know. Have a good week.